first, let's focus on the Diamond of Nemzik land with Dragons softball. Joining us here in the studio is head softball coach Kelsey Fail. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, at the beginning of the season, going in, because it's the first time we've had you here on set and gotten to talk to you, what were kind of the goals and expectations heading into this year for your team?
You know, this year was kind of all about coming together as a team. So we have 5 seniors and we have 7 freshmen. And so there's kind of a big age gap there with experience and everything. So it was just kind of all about coming together as a team and doing it quickly so that we could be successful, and just about getting those freshmen a lot of experience. They have some big shoes to fill next year when these seniors leave.
And there's a long time before you finally got to play at home, and I know weather has a lot of it to do with that. So you had a tournament in Aberdeen, West St. Paul, and then 10 games down in Florida. What did you learn about your team in kind of those preseason games to get you ready for the regular season?
Going into those games, it's kind of, you really don't know what you have until you get on the field, and you know, we learned that we could hit the ball a little bit, which has been awesome. Coming out of Florida, we were hitting over 300 as a team, so that's really, really good. Our pitchers also learned what's going to be expected of them and what they need to do to be successful, and I think a lot of growth for them happened over that time. So it was a really, really good learning experience for them before we went into our conference season.
And you talked about the senior leadership and you talked about the youngsters. How important is it to have those kind of veterans who have seen the league, seen the teams, know what to expect in bringing those youngsters along?
Right, they're our best on-the-field resource. They're the ones who can, you know, calm their teammates down in the middle of a game if things aren't going our way, or, you know, pump them up at the right times. They can also teach them the little things like, hey, this is what this team usually does, or against this team, let's look to do this. You know, it's them being assistant coaches on the field, basically, and teaching the younger players, you know, what's going to be expected out of them and, you know, what they need for us to be successful.
And, you know, the last bit of this season, you've got 4 doubleheaders, so 8 games in 5 days. What do you tell your team to finish strong, stay fresh with so many games in such a short amount of time?
We encourage using the athletic training room a lot, doing a lot of icing, taking ice baths, do some prehab before your body gets worn down. At this time of the season, all the teams that we face are going to be tired, and it's important for us to stay fresh physically, but more important mentally, and stay in the games. And it's a long time, 8 games in 5 days, so you know, you need to stay in it mentally just as much as physically. Yeah,
and reschedule kind of got us there a little bit. But what, if anything, has surprised you about your team so far this year?
I think one thing, I kind of mentioned the hitting. We came out and hit a ton, which has been awesome to see. And I think just our positive attitude, and just they're such a great group of people to be around, and they never give up, they never let down, and I think that has been awesome to see this year too.
Good. Well, we talked about those seniors when we first started. We've got Carly, Jill, Christina, Hannah, and Lauren. I want to make sure I don't forget anybody, but you got 5 seniors. What have they meant to your program in building this softball team, and what impression are they going to leave on the team?
Their senior class is just a really, really special class. They came in at a time and they were able to turn around the whole mentality of our team, and they just have such good attitudes all the time. They come in and they work hard every single day. They come in for extra reps. They do things on their own, and they have a really big passion for softball, which has really helped our team. It's helped the younger kids because they get to learn from them, have that attitude that, hey, we're going to be successful and we're going to take baby steps and we're going to get there. And these kids have never backed down from a challenge, and they're just a great group of kids in the classroom and on the field.
It kind of depresses me that I'm not going to hear Jill Fox in the batter's box ever again, or I don't know if you got somebody in the waiting for the drums, and you know, you talk about that kind of team bonding that happens, and your seniors have played a big role in that. And Carly, and she's yelling all the time, and such a positive attitude. Christina too. All those seniors have a positive attitude. How do you get that to translate to the next group and get them as invested in cheering each other on in the years to come?
I think that they've taken care of that themselves. They've taught the younger student athletes, and you know that you can see that in our freshmen already, or even in our junior and senior classes. Those are smaller classes, but they're stepping into those leadership roles already, which is awesome to see. I don't know if Jill has taught anyone the drumming yet. I don't know if anyone could ever fill that.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a rhythm all over.
Right,
but
yeah.
Coach, thanks for joining us today on Dragons Live.
Awesome.
Really
well, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Let's get into the highlights of some of those games we just mentioned with Coach for Dragons softball, starting with the trip to Bemidji. The Dragons gave up 13 hits and 8 runs, losing Game 1 8-0. In Game 2, the Bats came alive for the Dragons, getting 14 hits and scoring 10 runs to earn a split of the twin bill. Minnesota Crookston relocated to Moorhead for the second half of the weekend. After an error going past first base gets the base hit for the Dragons. Here, Jill Fox gets the hit in the top of the 5th, and the rally was on. Taylor Roddy cracks one to left, bringing in a run. Game 1 goes the way of the Dragons, 9-3. As we mentioned before, the games got moved from Crookston to Moorhead, so the Golden Eagles were the home team. The Dragons would come out early and get a 1-0 lead, but the home team advantage would eventually prove critical for the Golden Eagles as they get the walk-off hit in the bottom of the 7th to earn the split 2-1. The Bulldogs of Minnesota Duluth now on Nemzik softball field. They're a tough team, but they would get things rolling in the 4th, scoring 3 runs in the first game and add 4 more in the 5th to take Game 1 eventually 8-1. Game 2 would be fueled by some costly errors, with the Dragons benefiting first with Fox getting the base hit. Now Williamson will come home to tie the game at 2-all in the bottom of the 3rd. But eventually the errors would come against the Dragons, and the most costly one here, as the Bulldogs would earn the sweep and eventually go on to the 5-3 victory in Game 2. On the road at Sioux Falls and Southwest Minnesota State on the 7th and the 8th, the Dragons would lose both doubleheaders, oddly, by the same scores, 5-2 and 8-0. Traveling to the other Beavers, Minot State Beavers, on the 12th, they would earn the sweep with a Game 1 victory 3-2 and almost completing the come-from-behind win in Game 2 by falling short 4-3. Back at home against Wayne State, Emma Dummer gets an RBI single in this high-scoring affair. Tied 7-7 in the 7th, the Wildcats would get a sac fly to score the eventual game-winning run. Game 2 would remain scoreless until Wayne scored on an error in the 4th. They would add eventually 3 more with a home run from Caitlin Wobkin in the 6th as the Dragons drop the pair to Wayne State. Up next at the plate, Augustana. The Dragons would get out to an early lead first as Meeker scores single scoring Roddy. Augie would respond in the next, scoring 4 in the 2nd and 3 more in the 3rd to take Game 1 7-2. Augie's Sarah Kennedy would start Game 2 with a blast into the wind and over the right field fence. The Dragons would not go away, fighting back in the bottom of the 1st as Paige knocks in Carly Williamson for the run, keeping it tough. In the 2nd, the Dragons would commit the costly error, allowing 2 runs to score. Eventually, the Vikings would go on to win 6-1. Against St. Cloud State, the Huskies would take a 1-0 lead in the 1st on an error. The Dragons' only real threat came in the bottom of the 7th as they got a runner on 3rd but could not get him to come across the plate. Unfortunately, good pitching by St. Cloud shuts out the Dragons in Game 1. Game 2 saw more great work as St. Cloud plates 2 of their 4 runs here. Kate Kopech, with the lights out for the Huskies pitching, would do a complete game with only allowing 3 hits, 0 runs, and striking out 12 to earn the sweep of the Dragons and win Game 2 4-0. On the road this past weekend at Concordia St. Paul on Saturday, the Dragons fell 12-1 and 6-5. In Mankato on Sunday, they were swept by top-ranked Mavericks 7-0 and 7-3. The Dragons will finish off their 2017 season with home games tomorrow versus the Cobbers at 3:30 and 5:30, and this weekend on Saturday at 1 and 3 and Sunday at 12 and 2.